Welcome back to Information Warfare and You. So far we've discussed memetic warfare in Episode 1 and the algorithms that propagated in Episode 2. Today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, but not through the lens of job-specific algorithms. We're going to talk about general artificial intelligence. That's right, everyone. The technological singularity. Man-made, self-aware artificial intelligence capable of not only producing specific results for us, but also developing on its own without our intervention. This means the point when artificial intelligences are infinitely smarter than human beings in our current state.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon.
And so they're basically our overlords. The AIs are overlords.
Yeah, but they're very chill overlords. Like they don't care. There's no reason a super AI is going to care about regulating the details of human lives.
No reason?
So what is AI? Last time we talked about machine learning and algorithms as the fundamental basis of artificial intelligence. Although the social media platforms we use implement these ideas when deciding what they put in front of us, that concept is a little different than what we're talking about today. We're taking it a step further. The AIs we're used to now are definitely impressive, and the engineers and scientists who calibrate and work on them daily definitely deserve our respect. But these AIs are designed to complete specific tasks. A few examples of this are AlphaGo and AlphaZero. These two AIs were created by the company DeepMind Technologies, which was later acquired by Google. They used machine learning to learn games like chess and Go quickly. They both beat the best of professional players, and AlphaZero only took 4 hours to teach itself chess. Think about that for a second. Human chess grandmasters take approximately 10 years to get to that level if they ever even come close. You've heard of the 10,000 hours towards mastery? Yeah, 4 versus 10,000. It's crazy. It even goes beyond simple board games, too.
Self-play is a term for, I think, one of the most important and powerful ideas in artificial intelligence that people are currently working on. That's the exciting mechanism that I think, if we can figure out how to have an impact on more serious problems than games, would be transformative.
So these are examples of task-driven AI. So is any social media algorithm. But general artificial intelligence is being researched to think in significantly broader terms. But what exactly does that mean? If the task-driven AIs that we use today are run by considering variables and extrapolating solutions, general artificial intelligence will also be able to postulate new variables to consider in its thought process to address new and unknown problems. Applied AI versus general AI is a weird subject because it doesn't just incorporate the architecture and programming of a purpose-driven machine. General artificial intelligence will likely involve a conversation about consciousness. Putting clear parameters on consciousness is a tough one. The second you bust out the word consciousness, it has a tendency to draw out some woo-woo explanations for things we don't really understand, or at least things we can't numerically articulate yet. Consciousness means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Is it simply being aware of your own mortality? Philosopher René Descartes had a famous saying, "I think therefore I am." He held a bottom-up view of reality and could be considered a proponent of both empiricism and rationalism. This means the world around us can be explained by that which we can observe, measure, and repeat. Sounds a little like the scientific method, doesn't it? Most materialists fall into this philosophy that matter is the fundamental substance in nature, and that all things, including mental states and consciousness, are the result of material interactions. To walk it through more specifically, atoms create molecules, molecules create cells, cells create your brain, and your neurons create consciousness. The more woo-woo version of this is that everything exists within a field of consciousness. Dr. Amit Goswami calls this phenomenon science within consciousness and has written such books as The Self-Aware Universe and Physics of the Soul. Much of this discrepancy seems to be rooted in the scientific community not yet fully understanding quantum mechanics in its entirety. Other more supernatural perspectives pop up in different religions and belief structures. Even the meditator's perspective of everything existing within consciousness is something to consider. The next consideration is whether or not this hard to articulate and as of yet impossible to quantify concept of consciousness is limited to biological organisms or not. Does it count if we take away the self-awareness piece? Like, what about my cats Kitty and Senua? They cannot possibly articulate the nature of their own existence. But that doesn't mean they don't have emotions and feel pain like I do. I know when they're happy, in pain, or even just behaving kind of off. They legitimately have the animal equivalent of personalities. Ultimately, there is no definitive answer as to where you draw the line on consciousness because it's a very fluid concept at this point in time. Humans can't collectively explain it with numbers yet, so it's still a very philosophical thought exercise. Because of these restrictions, we're going to present consciousness here as the general artificial intelligence possessing both cognition as well as abstraction. Regardless of the finer points of what consciousness is empirically, this thought exercise adds another layer of complexity to this because it means you can't just make a general AI and walk away. There's an implied, baked-in moral ethical component to it. Imagine if humans created a general artificial intelligence so powerful that it was capable of producing continuous Nobel Prize level discoveries in the blink of an eye. We have no idea what the immediate effects of something like this would be, nor can we fathom the chain reaction of third-order effects further down the road. Narrow AI for specific purposes are crucial to almost every government or big business at this point. Everything from data analysis for promoting increased watch time like we discussed the last time, to spending habits of customers to drive advertisements all come from this type of technology. Even the more nefarious things you see in the form of surveillance, face recognition, and human network tracking come from it. It's unavoidable and you absolutely will never be able to put the genie back inside the bottle. It seems a little scary when you frame it this way, but the idealistic point of view for this eventual development would be a general artificial intelligence like the ship's computer from Star Trek. It seems like a flight of fancy right now, but it's becoming more and more real every single year. General artificial intelligence becoming a reality isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. What experts are worried about right now is the transition. Unfortunately, scientists can't just pump the brakes because they want to be more circumspect with the deployment of this massively powerful technology. The reason for this is that there are multiple governments with interests contrary to one another that are all competing to have GAI supremacy. The US and China are the two biggest players in this field right now, but a lot of other countries are all working on the same thing. Experts 1,000 times smarter than me are waving red flags right now, telling us all that the inevitable transition to GAI will be like cavemen trying to figure out how to do calculus. The whole experience will be a 100% foreign concept. Fuck. Imagine trying to explain the internet to a hunter-gatherer whose primary concern is getting ganked by some kind of a prehistoric predator. The same thing will happen to us humans when something exponentially more capable than us begins going down its own natural path of evolution. What the hell would that even look like? Yeah, scientists have no idea yet either. It's exciting.
Those dark parts of human nature, I think, are the suffering, injustice. I think all of that is necessary for us to discover the better angels.
My personal belief is that AIs are going to be conscious in roughly the same sense that people are, but I do think that as AI and brain-computer interfacing and quantum computing, as other technologies advance, we're going to gradually work toward a real science of consciousness, which will be quite interesting.
I think one of the solutions, the solution that seems maybe the best one, is to have an AI layer. If you think of like you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, sort of a third layer above the cortex, that could work well and symbiotically with you.
A terrifying thought put forward by Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan in the 60s is that human beings are just the sex organs of the machine world. Yeah, it sucks to think you're not the center of the universe, but it kind of makes sense. What if we're all just a blip on the radar of the evolution of a super intelligent being that is not only infinitely capable, but universally connected and immortal? Jesus, that's scary and awesome all at the same time. I don't know about you guys, but it makes me once again confront our insignificance in the Carl Sagan cosmic calendar sense of the concept. But don't go lock yourself in a supply closet at work and cry. If something happens in the next 20 to 50 years, you may as well adapt in the most reasonable and responsible way you can, right? So what does that actually mean?
Once the AI is as smart as a human, okay, let's teach it computer science. I mean, we can send it to school, it can learn math, it can learn programming, it can learn hardware engineering, and then you can copy 1 million of those, right? So all 1 million of those, maybe half of those are working on improving its own intelligence, but they're not working in isolation like humans are. They can share thoughts directly because they're all just running in the compute cloud.
It means none of us want to become the flesh interfaces repurposed from our old lives into fuel for this new entity Matrix style. We need to smooth out this very imminent and very radical transition into the great unknown. As living beings, we are all walking on a bridge of death over the chasm of extinction towards our own progress and evolution. This means we still have a chance to consider how we want to play this out as a species. Early general artificial intelligences will be influenced by deliberate inputs by their human parents. Right now, though, it seems like we're fucking up a little on the machine learning front. If you go back to part 2 in this series about algorithms, you'll quickly see that all of the machine learning around us in our day-to-day life focuses on spying on us with the primary motivator being corporate profit. If using this type of technology to sell you shit isn't bad enough, AI is also being developed and used for surveillance and military applications. Yes, it's a phenomenal tool for a great many things. But before we kick this can too far down the road, we need to address the inevitable consequences of an exponential rate of development on the part of a newly born general artificial intelligence. This entire situation is also different than anything in human history because instead of massive change coming in something like the Industrial Revolution or the invention of the internet, it'll be happening at a comparatively breakneck pace after the singularity. This is happening whether world leaders want to admit it or not. Humanity's momentum will ensure it. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if general artificial intelligence is achieved in 10 years, or 30 years, or 50 years. It requires a carefully considered plan for what essentially amounts to first contact, for lack of a better term. Dr. Ben Goertzel is the CEO of an organization called SingularityNet and is one of many on the tip of the spear of research into artificial intelligence. He likes to compare it to the parable of the frog and the boiling water. You put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you put it into tepid water and raise the temperature slowly, it'll die before it realizes what's going on. By the way, there is no way for us humans to jump out of this pot of water. A lot of the time in life, you don't notice something is happening until it has already unfolded all around you and has become the status quo. You're asking Alexa questions in your house, your fancy Tesla is driving you from point A to point B, your phone is using predictive text to determine what you want to say, you're even given entertainment and shopping recommendations based on your behavior. It may seem gradual until you look into the past just 10 years. Think how much better tech products have gotten in terms of speed, size, ability, and quality of life adjustments. In a perfect world, a slow and gradual transition would be ideal because not everybody learns at the same rate. But remember, not even the smartest and most motivated humans can learn at an exponential rate. People's comfort zones and sensibilities need to catch up because there is no telling what would happen if you ripped the technological band-aid off in one fell swoop. If the transition is done less than deliberately, a small percentage of people will adapt, and the remainder will be left struggling to evolve into the next era of living. Even if you say fuck 'em to those people who can't hang, you're gonna have a bad time from a pragmatic standpoint. A new class structure will emerge because the benefits will be that immense, regardless of the application. And although intelligence, motivation, and resilience play a part in one's ability to adapt, there are also other factors at play. Education, financial resources, and access to technology balance out the other side of this equation. Some rich dude may be able to take the time and expend the resources to not be left in the dust, but a subsistence farmer in the Congo is a different story. Still don't care? Well, what goes hand in hand with large gaps in social classes? Civil unrest. You know what comes next? Government crackdowns. Come on, I'm not crazy. Just look at what's happening in my own country right now, the US. Now, what happens when you combine that with what I said earlier about AI being used for surveillance and military applications, only now directed inwardly? Not much good can come from that path of growth, in my opinion. Unfortunately, some countries are already employing facial recognition software to do just that. From an ethical standpoint, gradual and controlled implementation is definitely the way to go. But right now, gradual is just our natural rate of technological development. When this happens, all future developments will be lightning fast with a limit approaching infinity. All we can hope for as future users of this technology is that the people on the tip of the spear are giving this serious, deliberate thought and are coming up with a viable plan of action. So that being said, although it's important to be aware of potential risks, it doesn't mean you need to be scared. You know, respect it. But that doesn't also mean you can't be cautiously optimistic. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll try not to wait 4 months next time. If you want to see me more often, you can catch me pretty regularly on late nights US Eastern Time over on twitch.tv/Doug Vossen. I'll see you guys again soon.